channel. It is your girl Courtney Lauren. For those of you who are new, welcome. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, click that bell so you can get the notifications when I make a post. I am back in my kitchen today sharing with you guys another one of my recipes, and today we are going to be making Dutch oven pot roast. I understand some of you guys might not have a Dutch oven. It is okay. I am also going to be doing this in a crock pot version eventually, so just sit tight for that one. This is for my Dutch oven folks. Everybody knows I love my Dutch oven pot. Honestly, I feel like she's part of the family now. We should give her a name. I don't know what we should name my Dutch oven, but if you guys think of a name for her, go ahead and put it in the comments below. At this point, we need to be calling her by name because she's part of the fam. So let's go ahead and get started with this recipe and let's get into it. Alright guys, so here I have a 2.5 pound chunk of chuck roast. Usually I like to find closer to 3 pounds, but this is the largest one I could find today at the grocery store. Anything between 2.5 to 3 pounds is good. I'm going to be using black pepper, some salt, olive oil. I have some Worcestershire sauce, some red wine, malt vinegar, and some beef broth. I'm also going to be using some all-purpose flour. I have 1 tablespoon of tomato paste. I have 2 bay leaves along with 5 garlic cloves that I just crushed and chopped up real roughly. And then I have 2 medium onions very thinly sliced, along with 3 sprigs of thyme and 1 large sprig of rosemary. In my bowl here, I have about 6 or 7 medium yellow potatoes peeled and sliced, and then also I have about 5 carrots that I cut up as well and peeled. Go ahead and get your salt and your pepper, and you're going to want to season both sides of your roast very generously with salt and pepper. I would say about 1.5 teaspoons, and then just split that between one side and the other side, just making sure it's nice and evenly coated with your salt and your pepper. After that, we're going to go ahead and take our all-purpose flour, and you're going to want to sprinkle about 1 tablespoon or 2 on each side. And I just take my clean hands and I just rub in all the flour on both sides, also along the edges as well. Just try and get it as evenly coated as you possibly can, and then flip it over and then do the same thing to the other side. Here I have my Dutch oven that's already been preheating, so I'm going to go ahead and add 2 tablespoons of olive oil to the bottom of my Dutch oven and let that heat until it's nice and shimmering. And once my olive oil is nice and hot and ready, I'm going to take my chuck roast and I'm going to place that right into the bottom of my pot. You're going to want to cook your roast for about 5 minutes per side, just enough to where it gets nice and brown. You'll also notice that the flour creates just a thin crust on it as well, which we definitely want to see. After you're done cooking your roast on each side for 5 minutes, you're also going to want to get some tongs or a big fork like I have here so that you can stand it up easily to also brown all the sides around the chuck roast. You want to make sure both sides are brown, but we're also going to make sure that those sides are nice and browned up as well. Now that our roast has been browned up on all the sides, go ahead and grab yourself a plate, put the roast on the plate, set it to the side, and we will come back to that later. With the remaining oil left in the bottom of your pot, go ahead and grab your onions, toss those in, and we're going to cook these about 5 minutes until they begin to brown up and become a little bit translucent. On this part, I also like to add a couple shakes of salt as well. Now that it's been about 5 minutes, we're going to go ahead and grab our red wine, and we're going to deglaze our pan with 1 cup of red wine. Like I mentioned in a previous video, you're going to want this to be a drier wine, so something like a Merlot or a Cab Sauv, and we're just going to let this come to a boil, and once it becomes nice and bubbly, we are going to add in the rest of our ingredients. So next I'm going to be adding in 3.5 cups of beef broth. After we add in all of our beef broth, we are going to also add in 1 tablespoon of tomato paste. We're also going to add in our 2 bay leaves and our garlic. We're also going to add in our thyme and our rosemary, and then 4 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. 4 tablespoons. Once we add all those ingredients in, you're going to want to give this a good stir. You also want to make sure that that tomato paste that we added in there is nice and thinned out and evenly distributed throughout the broth. And once you give this a good stir, we're going to add our roast back into our broth, and we're going to bring this to a light boil. Now that our roast has been brought to a light boil, we're going to go ahead and cover it. My oven is on 325. You're also going to want to arrange your rack in the very center of the oven, and we're going to place the whole pot in the oven. We're going to cook this and braise this in the oven for 1 hour and 45 minutes. Alright, so it's been 1 hour and 45 minutes. We're going to go ahead and take that lid off of the roast, and this is the part where we add in our carrots and our potatoes. I like to place these around the roast. Usually the roast kind of settles in the middle, so I like to put this all around the roast where the broth kind of settles at. And just go ahead and evenly distribute those in the broth. I also like to grab my spoon just to kind of tuck them down into the broth to make sure they get nice and sopped up with the broth. It's going to help them cook very evenly as well. We're going to cover this up, and we're going to let this braise in the oven for another 1 hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours. Alright, it's been about 1 hour and 45 minutes. I took the whole pot out of the oven. This is what it looks like. Smells amazing, looks amazing. I'm going to take out the chuck roast and place it into a bowl, and this is the part where we're going to shred up all of the meat. On this part, I also like to discard any of the excess fat or connective tissue or anything while I'm shredding it up, because I don't like to put that back into the roast if I can get it out beforehand. So I'm just doing it the old-fashioned way with 2 forks. And I'm just going to go ahead and shred it all up. You guys, this meat is so tender, it was ridiculous. It was literally falling apart before I was even touching it. That's how you know it's going to be good. So now my meat is all shredded up. Here's what it looks like before we put it back into our broth. I have my stove on about a 5. I wanted to bring this broth back to a boil. This is also the part where I like to take out any of the bay leaves that were in there, and also the thyme sprigs. If you saw my previous beef stew video, you saw that I did the flour and the butter trick. We're also going to be doing that to this as well. My pot roast, I like my broth to be more on the thick side, so I just went ahead and made myself a flour and butter paste. You can leave this part out if you like the broth a little bit more thin. That's totally up to you. I'm just going to go ahead and add about a teaspoon of flour and butter to my broth just to thicken it up a little bit. And I'm going to boil this out for about 5 minutes before I put the meat back in. So now my broth is nice and thick how I like it. I'm going to go ahead and place that meat and any of the juices along with the meat right back into my pot. After we place the meat back into our pot, you're just going to want to get your spoon and go ahead and mix this all around to make sure that the broth and everything is evenly incorporated with our meat. Once again, I will link this Dutch oven pot down below. At some point, you definitely got to get one of these in your kitchen. This pot is literally versatile. You can do anything with it. This pot roast was so good, and it's one of my family's favorite meals. At the very end, we are going to add just a couple of shakes of malt vinegar in there. Trust me on this part, you don't want to forget this because it elevates the pot roast to a whole new level. It's delicious. And our pot roast is done now, you guys. Today I went ahead and paired it with some scratch mashed potatoes, and this is the finished product. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and you can always put things down below that you want to see from me. Bye!